Hello, everybody. As you may know, I'm in Ecuador right now, and I've been in Ecuador for 5 years. Some people wondered about the political climate in Ecuador. Is the government actually going to try to balance the budget, or is it going to turn into a rotting socialist cesspit hellhole like Venezuela, for example? Well, we have some good news today. The president just signed a new law, as presidents like to do. And there are some questionable things in this law, like, for example, 300,000 new people will be put on welfare, which, if you're a socialist, you might think that's a good thing. Well, it's actually a bad thing because that's how the government purposely keeps people dependent on the state and keeps them poor. Like, if you want to keep somebody poor, put them on welfare. Um, so basically, there's that. But anyways, the good things that are happening are they're removing the gasoline subsidies and the diesel subsidies. Now, you might think that's a bad thing because that's going to raise all the gasoline prices. Well, all that means is that people in Ecuador are going to have to pay as much for gas as people in Colombia and Peru have been paying for gas for years. Um, right, in Colombia and Peru, they don't have gas subsidies, and the equally poor Latin American population does perfectly fine. It's just Ecuadorians are going to hate that at first because they're not used to it. They're used to the government paying for half their gasoline, which the government can't afford. And the government's not paying for it anyways. It's taxing them and using their money to make their gasoline cheaper, but just adding a layer of bureaucratic waste in there. So it actually ends up costing them more money. It just gives them the illusion of cheaper gas. It's going to be a bit hectic because it's actually going into effect tonight. The day the bill was signed is October 2nd. I believe tomorrow, October 3rd, a Thursday, it's going to go into effect. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see how people react. Now, what tends to happen in a country like this when the government passes a law that increases gasoline and diesel prices significantly? Well, a law like that may anger a lot of people, and especially in poor rural areas where there's a lot of indigenous people, they like to engage in a form of protest where they just go out in the streets and shut down all the roads, like highways, everything just gets totally shut down. Nobody can pass. The police can't really do much about it. Now, you can see the president acting like a politician because those same people are going to be the ones who are benefiting from this law, putting 300,000 new people on welfare, right? In a country with 16 million people, putting 300,000 more on welfare is pretty significant. So the president is kind of playing his cards in a pretty smart way. He's like, okay, the country can't afford to spend $1.3 billion a year on gas subsidies. However, it's a lot more affordable to put a bunch of people on welfare so that they won't be as mad about when I take away these gasoline subsidies, which he has to do. Um, Now, another thing that was done was raising taxes on companies that make over $10 million a year, which I don't necessarily agree with. But hey, the government, it's a government; it's got to steal money, it's got to make money somehow. Now there were some other good things aside from the gasoline subsidies been removed. There were some other good things that were passed in the bill. For example, finally, as has been talked about for years, removing the subsidies, the import tax. I'm sorry, not subsidies, the import tariffs for cell phones and computers and other electronics. That's been hurting the country for a long time. Imagine running a small business, every small business throughout the entire country, you have to pay 50 to 100% more for cell phones and computers and tablets, cash registers, machinery, things like that. Also, consumers have to pay a lot more for cell phones and computers and things like that. It really hurts people, so that's going to help a lot. The government's going to make less money from that, but it's going to solve a lot of other economic problems and make the economy stronger in the long run. They also removed import tariffs for raw materials and heavy machinery for factories and big companies, and that's really good. That's going to help the economy. Things will get cheaper. Let's go back to the fuel subsidies a little bit. So one way that will also help the government is because they won't have to spend as much money, um, kind of running after people who are illegally bringing gas from. They're bringing cheap gas from Ecuador into Peru and Colombia and selling it at the market price, right? It happens any country that there are fuel subsidies, people are going to do that. You see it happening all the time at the border. If you go to the Macará border, you'll see people just flagrantly bringing subsidized gasoline into Peru. Sometimes they get capped for it, sometimes they don't. Um, so the government's not going to have to worry about that. Um, Now, being a person who runs permaculture farms, we do use some gasoline for the weed whackers because unfortunately, um, well, this is a whole other topic. We would love to use electric weed whackers, but the technology is just not there yet. Still, the German company Steel finally made an electric weed whacker um, that's almost as powerful as the gas one that we have to use. Almost. Unfortunately, it's very, very hard to get into the country. None of the distributors here carry it. partly because of the import taxes, nobody wants to buy it. Just the battery alone is so expensive. The backpack battery is like $1,000. So we're waiting on that. So, anyways, we still use gas for a number of things: generators for remote construction projects, weed whacker, backpack sprayer, future things like a wood chipper. We're going to have to pay a lot more for that. But what's going to be nice is we're not going to have to fight with all the stupid laws that came along with the gasoline subsidies. Like, they want to prevent people from buying massive amounts of gas and use it for mining because the government doesn't want to subsidize mining. So if you want to buy a lot of gas in containers, you need to get an expensive permit and do all this stupid crap. So anytime we wanted to buy more than one container of gas, we'd have to send multiple taxis to the gas station, which costs more money and costs more worker hours. And then you have to pay the taxi more because they don't want to bring 7 containers of gas down the highway, because what if a cop catches them and tries to fine them for carrying more than the state approved amount of gasoline? So all that inefficiency is going to get totally eliminated. And while we are going to have to pay more for gas, we'll have to pay a lot less for all that other stuff. So I'm kind of welcoming this new law, even though it has a few things I don't like. There's a number of really good things to balance it out, and the people are going to hurt at first. For these increasing fuel prices, it's going to hurt people. Taxi and bus prices are going to go up. There's going to be some interesting things happening in the next few days as people adjust to it, but over time, it's not going to destroy the country. Peru and Colombia are doing just fine, and they pay normal market price for gasoline. So that's all I have to say today. If you have any questions about the political climate in Ecuador, feel free to comment below and like and subscribe to my channel. If you're watching this on YouTube, if you're watching this on Facebook, then you should go find my YouTube channel and subscribe to it. That's all. Goodbye.